Hi everyone, I hope this finds you doing well and staying healthy. I want to show some enhancements to Illuminated Cloud support for case in case-insensitive languages such as Apex and the SOQL and SOSL query languages and the expression languages that you find in Visualforce and Aura. Illuminated Cloud's actually had quite a bit of support for this in the past, and just as an example, we can look at this anonymous Apex and see that it's highlighted things where the case that is used does not match the case that's expected. So for example, here it's saying that all caps 4 is not equal to the expected case for the for keyword all lowercase. And here where it says that all lowercase list does not match the type declaration name list with a capital L. And it's even had a pretty quick way to address these. There's a quick fix available as one of the context actions that can take care of that for you. So that's been there. One thing I will say, and it's pretty relevant to what I'm about to show in this enhancement demo, is that one of those categories of inconsistencies is more objective and the other is more subjective. So for example, list, being lowercase, there is an authoritative or canonical representation of that name, and that is in the declaration of the type or the method or the variable or whatever it happens to be that says, this is the case that I call myself. And a reference that does not match that case is inconsistent, and that is an objective fact. So that is pretty straightforward. But when you get to keywords, there's not really a canonical reference point for that. The way that Illuminated Cloud has done this in the past is it has used language precedent. So for example, Apex is largely a kind of familial derivative of Java. And in Java and its kind of ancestor languages all the way back to C and such, they are case sensitive and keywords are lowercase, and the parser will only recognize them in lowercase. And that is the reason that Illuminated Cloud uses lowercase for keywords in Apex. Similarly, in the query language, while a lot of query languages and dialects of SQL, things like that, are themselves case insensitive, a fairly, I think, widespread convention or best practice is that the keywords in these query languages are all uppercase. Again, that is not a hard and fast rule like it is with keywords in Java, but I think it's a fairly well-adopted best practice. Having said that, there's no question that this more subjective aspect doesn't necessarily meet everyone's needs, or more importantly, doesn't meet their preferences, their stylistic preferences. And so that's where these enhancements come into play. So let's take a look. So if we go into the settings and we take a look at Editor, Code Style, Apex, there's a new tab called Case that's been added. And as you can see, this is set up for the various supported languages. I'll go ahead and resize this a bit. Set up for the various supported languages. It's true that while this is under Apex, you'll find Visualforce and Aura here as well, because they're not distinct code style settings for those. So you'll see the various languages, and within those, the categories of effectively language tokens that you might find that represent keyword types. So for Apex, keyword, those are going to be like flow control keywords, declaration keywords, modifiers, things like that. Annotations and annotation attributes. Within the query languages, you've got keywords, the names of well-defined functions, the names of constants. And then within the query languages, the markup languages, the expression languages within them, you have, of course, keywords again, and then you have functions. You'll notice that isn't in Aura. Aura has a well-defined case for its functions, unlike Visualforce, and it will fail deployment if you try to use a different case. So you don't see that option here, but you've got functions for Visualforce, and then you have global variables and global value providers. So dollar label, dollar resource, things like that for the two of them. Now you can see that by default, the setting is going to be recommended. There are multiple options. Recommended is going to yield the exact same results as previously in Illuminated Cloud, ever since this case mismatch logic was introduced in Illuminated Cloud 2. But you can see that there are multiple other options from which you can choose on each one of these categories. So whether you want things all uppercase, all lowercase, whether you want them capitalized such that only the leading letter in a token is uppercase and everything after that's lowercase, or whether you want them to be camel case with either leading upper or leading lower. So let's look at a couple of examples of these. I know some people prefer their annotations to begin with a leading lowercase letter, so like little I on this test. So let's just change that and you'll see the preview change. So camel case leading lower. You can see that changed for the is test up there, and then I'm going to do the same thing. You can see it changed for the actual annotation attributes. I know that some people believe that query keywords should be lowercase. So we can see select from where all that null all went to lowercase. So let's just make some changes to all these. Some of them are going to be a little bit silly, but it's to emphasize the flexibility afforded by this. So we'll go ahead and say that keywords are going to be capitalized here, and we'll go ahead and capitalize them in the markup languages as well, or the expression languages. And we'll say that functions are uppercase here. We'll make them lowercase. Actually, we'll make them capitalized since we made keywords lowercase. And we'll make constants all we'll make them camel case leading upper. So you can say this year just changed. And then over here, we'll make functions lowercase. So we can see URL4 went to lowercase, and global variables will make uppercase. We'll make global value providers the same, all uppercase. So I think that's customized everything. So we'll go ahead and say OK. And what we'll see immediately when we swap back over here is now we have a lot of yellow in something that wasn't yellow before. And in fact, if we run the case-specific code inspections, I've got a profile that's only those, what we'll see is that we have thousands and thousands of warnings now across the project because literally every keyword token in any of those languages now no longer meets the configured preferences. And so what can we do with that? Well, as I showed previously, we can use the quick fix to change things onesie twosie. I can even do that, like fix all in this file, and we can see this file no longer has any yellow. I'm going to undo that. We could run the code inspection across all the code like we did here, and we could apply that quick fix across all files. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you the other major aspect of this feature. If we go back into the case code style settings, there are some unchecked boxes. They're unchecked by default for backward compatibility that tell the formatter to enforce case compliance against these configuration settings when the formatters run. So this will do it for references to declarations. This will do it for all keywords in Apex, and this will do it for keywords in the other various languages. So we'll go ahead and do that, and I'm going to say OK. And let's bring up version control. We can see the only differences here are the actual code style settings where we just enabled all that. So now let's go up here and run the formatter across this. And I'm just going to make it run a little bit faster, I'm going to run it across the subset of files that can be formatted. If we look at this, it's basically Apex, Visualforce, and Aura files. And so that'll make just the formatter run a little bit faster so it doesn't have to do any meta XML files or any JSON files, things like that. And as soon as this completes, what we're going to find is that all these files have been updated to bring them into compliance with the case settings that I just configured. And we'll take a look at that because it'll show up in version control here as differences. And so we can see 226 files were changed. And if we look at them, like here's Aura, and we can see that keywords have been changed to capitalized. Global value providers are all uppercase now, things like that. If we look at Apex, we can see that all the keywords are capitalized. Again, that's one I don't expect people to do, but who knows? And then if we look at something that has, say, a SOQL query, let's go to expense controller. We can see that not only are the Apex keywords changed, we can see now that the annotations and annotation attributes are changed to be a leading lowercase of whatever they were. And we can see that the queries have been changed as well. So this has changed across the board. And if we run that code inspection again, we should get no issues whatsoever because everything has been brought into compliance with one kind of broad brushstroke reformatting of the code base. And so right here we should see, yeah, no issues found down here. And if we go back into that anonymous Apex window, I can show that if I reformat, it's not just going to be keywords, it's also going to be references to declarations, so type names, variable names, things like that. So if I format, it brings all of those into compliance with my settings. So that actually does a nice job, and we can easily change back. I'm not going to turn off the formatter, but I'll change everything back to recommended real quick, and we'll run the formatter again and see that it basically reverts everything. So it's a very consistent operation, and it should make it very easy to maintain this, tinker with settings, see what you like, and ideally to get this into compliance with your or your team's preferences for the way that case should be handled. So we'll just run the formatter one more time. I didn't select that subscope that time. It'll take just a moment longer. But we'll run the formatter one more time, and when he gets finished, we'll see that everything except for the code style settings in version control will drop off because everything will be compliant with what it was. And you'll also notice that as soon as I changed the settings, it highlighted everything in yellow here that didn't meet that now that I changed the settings, just as it did before. So One thing I'm going to show in just a moment is that in the settings, you may have seen that things were categorical in nature. So you had keywords in Apex, you had annotations and annotation attributes, but you couldn't go in and say that you just wanted the isTest annotation to be begin with the lowercase I and all other annotations to begin with a capital I. And the reason for that is that I believe in categorical consistency. I believe very strongly in it. I think that exceptions and one-offs are a distraction and can create confusion. So we can see here that this has actually pretty much eliminated all other changes that were introduced by that first format. We're back to just the settings for the formatter, and it's just where I enabled case changes on formatting. So let's go back in here real quick. And like I said, things are categorical in nature. I understand that this may make it so that it doesn't meet every single team's or every single developer's preference for every single token in these languages, and that's okay. But I think it's more important that you have categorical consistency. That if all of your annotations begin with a leading cap or begin with a leading lowercase, it becomes predictable. Now, one thing I'll also show is as you're writing code, I showed this a little bit, but as you're writing code, this is all followed as well. So for example, if we come down here and I say if, and you'll see that the code completion is lowercase if here, if I change, say, keywords to be capitalized again, then we will see that if I type if, that the keyword completion is going to use capitalized. And if I use something like if not null and hit enter, we're going to see that in the live template as it gets inserted, that and I've got to choose variable here, that it's going to use the capitalized syntax for if and for null. So it's going to be consistent across. If I were to implement a method, override a method, say we override toString here, it is going to take care of that and show public override, return super. All of those are going to follow the same convention that we've configured. So it's not just going to be as you reformat code, it's not just going to be these inspections and what they show and the quick fixes. Really, every way that code gets entered into it that is assisted by Illuminated Cloud is going to follow these conventions. All right, so that's really the feature. I hope you find this useful. I hope this helps your team to adopt this particular feature. I know some teams have turned off these code inspections, particularly the keyword code inspection, because they just couldn't get it to meet their particular conventions. I hope this helps to close, ideally eliminate that gap. If you find any issues with this where things are being reported or inserted incorrectly based on your configuration, just let me know. Provide a very simple code snippet that'll reproduce that and file it in the issue tracker, and I will take care of it very quickly. Otherwise, take care, and thank you for your time. Bye.